good morning and welcome to a new live broadcast on the Geekanoids channel. In fact, the one that you've been waiting for. This is all about the Apple Worldwide Developers Conference 2019, the keynote speech that happened just yesterday, I think about 12 hours ago, and my opinion and our discussion, because you've been asking for this video, on what was announced. Now, this is going to be very sort of heavy on the Mac Pro, because that's what interests me the most. You can see in the background here on my screen, I've already been looking up the specifications and really sort of digesting what was announced. There was more than just the Mac Pro announced, of course, including iOS 13. So let's start with iOS 13. Some great new features, really good features. Of course, we've got dark mode coming, but for the most part, when I look at iOS 13, I just see Apple still adding features, and it just doesn't gel well with me. I wish they'd take away features. You know, I said it, there you go. I said it, I wish iOS 13, or they did a light model or light version of iOS 13, so that we had something that was very, very slick, very concentrated, very business oriented, rather than having all of these features. I personally, and I'm sure a lot of you will feel the same, just don't use after the first sort of 20 minutes of enjoying the new gimmick or the new feature. That's just my personal opinion, of course. What I was sort of pleased about, but mixed feelings as well, was the new iPadOS. I'm going to say it here as well, I did call this as happening. I did predict this in a previous video, that they would eventually sort of merge the Mac OS, the desktop OS that we use, and iPad OS. And it's sort of happening. You can see this convergence of the two happening over the past few years. And now we've got iPadOS, which adds into it widgets on the home screen. I can take that or leave that. More multitasking improvements, so that we can have two windows from the same app, like Notes, and then copy and paste between the two. We've also got multi-app support. We've got more like, I'm still not sold on this, but they called it files, of course, and access to more like a file system, like a more structured folder system for files, and the ability, of course, to plug in an external thumb drive. I assume that an SSD or a USB drive would work as well. I can only assume that, because they did just say a thumb drive. And also direct support for SD cards as well. No slot, of course, but just direct support for SD card readers. And of course, you can import direct from your camera a bit easier as well. So they're really pushing this, because the power of the iPad is there. The iPad and the iPad Pro and the iPad Air all deliver really good performance. So I can see where they're going with this, but my mixed feelings are that, are they trying to make it too pro? So going back to my initial thoughts on iOS 13, I think they're trying to make that too consumer, and then the pro users just have lots of features that they're not going to use. And then with the iPad, it was quite focused in what it was going to be doing, and now they're trying to cram it full of features that you would normally do on a laptop or a desktop. So some confusion there, I think, on Apple's part, and some confusion there on my part as well. Now, the two announcements that really interested me, of course, and I've talked about this in a lot of previous videos, is the new Mac Pro. They weren't giving us any details about the new Mac Pro. And of course, a new display to go alongside it. So we're going to take a closer look at that in this video. All of the image I'm going to show you, full credit to Apple. This is off of their website. YouTube, please don't demonetize this video. I'm using this to show Apple's new products, and I think it's definitely fair use. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at the new Mac Pro. So here we go. This is the new Mac Pro. Cheese grater design. In many of my videos, I said bring back the old cheese grater Mac Pro. It's one of the best designs, and I think it looks absolutely superb. And this one, again, I know I made a joke about this on Twitter last night. It does look like a cheese grater. Everyone's referring it to as such, but the power is absolutely fantastic. Now, it's got this top handle that you turn to lift off the outer cover. Now this is something, the internal design of this is something that I said would happen. We're all hoping for a very modular Mac Pro where we could use regular components. Now of course we can put in regular SSDs with a bit of sort of maneuverability inside. We can of course use regular memory and buy that from a third party if we choose. But when it comes to the graphics cards, we're going to be limited in choice when we want to upgrade in the future by what the OS supports. And these black enclosures that the graphics cards go into, is that going to limit us into using cards that are specifically designed for the Apple computer? Only time will tell on that, and I certainly hope that's not the case. But a really nice design. On the top here, you're seeing the power button, LED light and 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports. And then round on the inside, we're seeing some internal I/O, including some SATA connections. And we can see a lock here as well. So this portion is obviously locked in at the moment, so I'm sure that will be removable. And then we've of course got the 2 bays for up to 2 GPUs down the bottom. Now this is the bit that worries me, is just GPU upgrades. Time will tell whether that's going to be upgradable. Up to 28 cores on the Intel Xeon processor. It's a new processor, the fastest that's ever been used in a Mac, and it's really going to allow for some very, very powerful performance. We've also got really good heatsink on this. Heat pipes that direct hot air away from the chip, from the processor. It looks like a very, very well thought out design, and it should allow the chip to run fully, sort of full power without any sort of thermal throttling. So that's going to be a very, very good thing. Up to 2933 MHz DDR4 memory. I believe you can go up to 1.5 terabytes. And what you're seeing here is 12 memory slots. Yeah, 12 memory slots on this. Absolutely fantastic. 140 gigabits per second, or gigabytes per second memory bandwidth, and it's a 6-channel memory system. Now you've got different processors in here. The top one's a 28 core offering 56 threads. We can also have a 24 core offering 48, 16 core with 32 threads, 12 core with 24 threads, and the base version is 8 core 16 threads. Now when we come on to the price has been announced at starting at $5,999. It's going to be the same in pounds. That's going to be for that base specification, so it's going to go upwards from there. We've got 8 PCI Express expansion slots. You can see that they're hidden away there. Obviously behind the graphics cards that was in that original image that I showed you. With some, there were some still showing, but we've got double wide slots, single width slots, and also some half-length slots in there as well. Very, very good performance in this, and in fact, I'm just really excited about the power that this Mac Pro is going to actually deliver. The pricing is where I have an issue. I currently run a 2013 or late 2013 Mac Pro here, the trash can Mac. So we're going to, from this day forwards, refer to that as the trash can Mac, and this is the new cheese grater Mac. The trash can Mac that I use, that was promised to be amazing performance, and then over time it became apparent that it wasn't that great, and to this day I don't really use it for video editing, which is very sad. I use my iMac here for video editing. My worries with this new Mac Pro is that to get some longevity out of it, to get some future proofing with regards to performance, you're going to need to go in at the middle ground upwards. The base Mac Pro is still going to be a very good machine, don't get me wrong, but when it starts at $5,999 for that base configuration with 256 gigabytes of storage at that price as well, you know, it's a big ask to go up to the mid-range, which is probably going to go probably for around about the £9,000 mark, and then the top end, who knows, probably 14, 15, 16,000 pounds. So the pricing is the sticking point on this one, and the same applies actually if I just switch back to having a look at the Pro Display, which is not HDR, by the way. It's XDR, Extreme Dynamic Range. Admittedly, the new Pro Display XDR looks fantastic, but it comes in at the same price point, of course. It's coming in, I think it was at 4,999 for one model, 5,999 for another model, and then you had extra to spend on, I even believe the stand was extra. Correct me if I'm wrong. It is a fantastic display. 32 inches, 350 nits of sustained brightness, 1000 nits at the highest setting, and 1600 nits at the peak brightness with 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio is no mean feat. 10-bit colour depth as well, wide colour gamut. It's going to be a really professional high-end display, and it really is a leap in technology. I do believe that. And Apple's reality distortion field came out of all these new terminology for it being XDR, and it does look fantastic. But the problem I've got is, as a professional, you're going to be seeing this sort of 6K resolution with this peak brightness and amazing contrast, and the people who are going to be consuming the work that you produce on this are indeed going to be seeing that work on lesser displays. So I think it's really only targeted at very, very high-end users, and of course the price point reflects that. Coming in, I believe the display was 4,999. I think I mentioned that earlier, and it was they mentioned 5,999 for some nanopixel version, and then I even believe it was extra for the stand, and of course if you want the Vaser mount you've got to buy the adapter. So they really have priced these Mac Pros very, very high indeed, and they've obviously priced the displays very, very high indeed as well. And I can see why, because they need to differentiate between the iMacs, the iMac Pro, and of course now the Mac Pro. But it does make it very, very difficult and a very, very hefty price tag, even for somebody of my experience who would love to go back to using a Mac Pro for my production. It makes it very, very expensive, and it's a big, big investment. If you take a step back, away from all of the terminology that Apple used to try and sort of pull you in and make you buy one, if you take a step back though and just look at cost of ownership over the years, and for example my Mac Pro, I think it cost me, I don't know, round about sort of £3,000, let's say, and it's now in its 6th year of use. So if you divide that by 6 years, that's £500 a year. It's about £10 a week. So for a professional, if you get that longevity out of the machine, £10 a week isn't that bad, because you're obviously generating far more revenue than that £10 a week that the computers cost you. It's just the initial outlay that is very hard to swallow. So anyway, that's my opinion on the new Mac Pro. Amazing machine, amazing specifications. You can, of course, and I can hear Windows users rejoicing because you can, of course, build a comparable specification Windows machine for quite a bit cheaper than the new Mac Pro. And of course, when it comes to the Pro display, the XDR display, of course you can buy a display from a third party, and that could be a 4K, 5K or 6K display for quite a lot less than the Apple equivalent. And that has always been the way. But you pay this sort of Apple premium for the build quality, and so that, fingers crossed, everything works as it should. But you can build something of equal performance for quite a lot less. But of course, with me, I love Mac OS. So what am I going to do in the future? What are you going to do in the future? I've seen plenty of you saying you don't like the design. David James thought WWDC was really good. I think Apple have finally got their act together for pros, and they have. They've delivered what pros wanted, but at a very, very, not just a premium, a very, very premium price point. Nick Thomas is coming in the live chat saying, valid point re quality of monitor and settings using Photoshop. I have to factor in the different types of printers. So there you go, you're coming from the Pro display, calibrated to different types of printers, then calibrated to how people are going to view the work that you produce. You have to weigh up all of these pros and cons. Null Zero saying price to performance is with the new AMD Ryzen. And 666JG not saying, I'd like to get into the Mac ecosystem but just can't afford it. And that is the problem for a lot of people. The entry level point for Macs now is either a MacBook or indeed the Mac Mini. So that is a way you can go if you want to get into the Mac ecosystem. But if you buy in at that entry level with the Mac Mini, are you going to be disappointed with the performance and the expandability? Lots of things to weigh up. Brilliant discussion, everyone. Thanks for joining in the live chat. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of iOS 13, the new iPadOS, and of course the new Cheese Grater Mac Pro, which should be available latter this year, but probably next year, and also the new Pro display. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button. Thanks very much, everyone. I'll see you all in another video very soon.